Shabbat Shalom, everyone, and thank you for inviting me into your home again. I'm Cantor, and this is the Torah Teaser. It's a really hot day out today, but I'd still rather do this outside than inside whenever I can help it. Well, I hope you had a chance to get into the verses this week. There's really a lot of good information in the Torah and Haftorah. Great rules to live by. I want to focus, though, on the Brit Hadashah. Now, when I read the Brit Hadashah, and this was the part about where Yeshua is beaten, he has a crown of thorns and is hanging on a cross. As I read through the whole verses, there was something in the very beginning that was bothering me, and I couldn't quite put my finger on it at first. But as I read it a couple times, it finally became apparent. It wasn't so much about the main point of these verses, the section that was picked out, which is the crucifixion of Yeshua. What was bothering me, I think, was in the verses, it talks about what was going on around Yeshua during this time. Eventually, I figured it out, what was bothering me, and truly I was humbled. Now, the verse I'm talking about is Luke 23:35. And it goes on to say, "And the people stood by watching, but the rulers scoffed at him, saying, 'He saved others. Let him save himself, if he is the Christ of God, the chosen one.' Soldiers drank and scoffed at him, offering sour wine." Now, Yeshua's message on earth, as you know, is one of love, forgiveness, and kindness. On earth, what did he say was the second most important commandment? As you know, love your neighbor as yourself. So what is the opposite of love, forgiveness, and kindness? Well, many would say hate. But true hate is not what plagues us on a daily basis. Now, I'm not talking big picture or anything else that's going on in the world. I'm talking about daily lives. True hatred is not what we see around us all that much, if at all. I think what plagues us at our personal levels is more like indifference, or at least the perception of indifference. What stuck with me the most were the attitudes of the people around Yeshua. Looks like I have some bugs coming in here. But anyways, what struck me the most was the attitudes in the verses, was the attitudes of the people around Yeshua as he was being beaten and crucified. It wasn't the venomous hatred that we may expect, being the opposite of the living embodiment of God's love for us. I mean, I didn't read in there any place where it said that people were screaming and yelling and things like that around his crucifixion. What stuck out to me was the indifference. The people stood by and watched. Leaders ridiculed and laughed. Soldiers taunted and played games. All while in tremendous agony and disgrace as Yeshua hung on the cross, for those same people, he was giving up his soul. I think it's indifference that plagues us and is so hard to overcome. If we believers hate, I think that's easy to recognize. We can see the inconsistency in our own behavior, and we can work to address it. But I don't think, as I said, that that's what we see when we pass people on the street, when we are filling the needs of the temple family or listening to neighbors, maybe in distress. Maybe it's indifference that is the enemy of love thy neighbor. You know, there was a gay couple down the street from us, and one was dying of AIDS. It's a terrible death. And they would sit outside to escape the darkness in a house where someone is dying like that, and we'd drive by and see them. And so my wife said, we need to stop, and I need to make some food for them, and we need to stop by and see how they're doing. So we did, a couple of times. It turns out, even though I was in the military and they had a preconceived notion of how I felt about them and their lifestyle, and we were obvious believers, it's no secret, and they had their preconceived notion of that also, it turns out we were the only people in what is really a pretty close-knit neighborhood that did stop by. It was not that they felt hated. They talked to us about it. They felt the isolation of indifference to their suffering. Now, I don't tell this story to pat ourselves on the back at all. We are guilty of not doing this more often than not. And truth be told, We knew them mostly because one of them was an excellent handyman and he worked on our house while I was away or on board ship, things like that. Now, he was the more sensitive of the two, but still, I came home more often than once seeing that poor man crying after working for my wife all day. And all I could say was, believe me, I understand. Okay. In reality, showing care for Kim comes a little more naturally for her than it does for me, and I'm working on that. And actually, as I shared the thoughts of how I was working on that, Kim mentioned that my words reminded her of a verse, and that was Revelations 3:15 through 16. You know, the one where it says, I would rather you were hot or cold, but because you're neither, spit you out. And as I thought about it, with respect to myself, she's right. And my own failings became starkly clear to me. I have friends and neighbors that I care about. But I took a moment right then to consider how many times I had contacted them since the coronavirus and, were being shut in more. They may need something, or it might just be nice to get a note or a call, or just a hello. And often, I realized I've been silent. Is that also seen as indifference? Am I being indifferent? I'll say that Kim will help me with that answer. I'm not asking for any inputs. As I think about it, it's not that we are not moved by the needs and suffering of others. It's that we don't move to assist in any way. Sometimes all someone needs is just a willing ear. Now, don't get me wrong about this point I'm bringing up. This isn't about beating myself up, and it's not about you guys beating yourself up at all. I'm talking about a two-way street here. This is a two-way street. This doesn't have anything to do with making yourself a doormat, and it doesn't mean you should accept bad behavior of others. On the other hand, we can't and shouldn't expect to address all ills. Sometimes we just don't have the strength, and it's us that needs the help. Sometimes we're the giver, and sometimes we're the receiver. That's okay. We should expect that there will be a balance in what we need and what we can give. None of us are alone in this, and we should remember that, though. What we really should expect from ourselves is that we make an effort. Now, realistically, opportunities to care will come, and we will fail to rise to our own potential. It will happen, and it'll probably happen often. But remember that failure is just one event in a lifetime of innumerable events. So my point here is not to feel defeated in trying this. It's just maybe to try to take advantage of the next opportunity when it shows itself. Maybe listen to someone this week or talk to someone that you feel may be feeling alone or depressed, or maybe you're feeling alone or depressed. It can be as simple as just sharing the pleasantness of friendship with a next door neighbor or one of your friends. When we meet on this two-way street, both sides gain, though we are on different lanes in our lives. So what do you think? Is indifference, at least around us in our personal lives, is indifference the enemy of the love that Yeshua gave us? And the people stood by and watched? Anyway, I thought that's what jumped out at me. I thought it might be interesting to share with you. And I hope maybe you take a moment to think about it. Indifference. In any case, have fun with the scriptures. I hope you enjoyed discussions around the table with this one. I'll close out now, and as I always do, and that is, remember that you are important to God. You are important to the body of Yeshua. And please remember that even though I may fail to demonstrate it at times, you are very important to your spiritual family here at Beth Israel. God bless.